Sophia, a 10-year veteran at Innovate Tech, was the heart of the product development team, always dedicated and innovative. During a company-wide meeting, the air grew thick with tension when Marcus, the arrogant new CEO, suddenly pointed at her. In front of dozens of colleagues, he threw Sophia's project documents to the floor, snarling, "You're a burden. Innovate Tech doesn't need trash," and fired her on the spot. The room fell silent. Sophia, pale-faced, bit her lip to hold back tears and gave a cold smile. "Thanks for the opportunity, Marcus." She walked out, her heart shattered, a decade of devotion seemingly erased. Yet, a mysterious spark of resolve flickered in her eyes. Why did Marcus target her? What lay behind his ruthless decision? As the elevator doors closed, Sophia's sobs echoed, leaving a haunting question: would she crumble or fight back? The echoes from this morning's meeting still lingered, the sound of project documents hitting the floor as Marcus threw them, his voice roaring like a death sentence. Just hours ago, she was Sophia, the one who turned vague ideas into Innovate Tech's flagship products, the golden brain the development team revered. Now, she was just a shadow leaving the office amid whispers, her heart shattered but still wearing a cold smile to mask her tears. When the elevator doors closed, she broke down, not because she lost her job, but because 10 years of dedication felt erased, like a line of faulty code. Sophia stood motionless in her small apartment, the neon city lights spilling through the window, casting a glow on her stunned face. The apartment was suffocatingly quiet, broken only by the ticking clock, a cruel reminder of time slipping away. Sitting on the sofa, clutching a cold coffee mug, Sophia tried to make sense of why Marcus targeted her. He was Donald's son, Innovate Tech's founder, and had been CEO for barely 3 months. She'd seen his arrogant glares in meetings, heard his biting remarks about old projects, but never expected such a direct attack. What made him hate her so much? Her new project, the one she'd spent 2 years perfecting, was set to launch next week. She checked every line of code, every interface, ensuring it was ready to conquer the global market. So why did Marcus choose now to cast her aside? The question gnawed at her, a system error she couldn't debug. Late into the night, as the city outside fell asleep, Sophia couldn't close her eyes. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number flashing on the screen. She hesitated, thinking it might be a colleague offering pity, or worse, someone mocking her on Marcus's behalf. But curiosity won. She answered, her voice hoarse, "Hello? Sophia, it's Donald." The voice on the other end was deep, heavy with emotion, as if holding back a storm. Sophia nearly dropped the phone. Donald, the founder of Innovate Tech, who hired her 10 years ago after a brief interview, the man she respected like a mentor. He'd been in Europe for months negotiating deals, leaving Marcus free to run the show. "I just got an email from our Berlin partners. They're asking about you." "What the hell is going on?" Sophia swallowed hard, her chest tightening. She recounted the meeting, her voice trembling as she relived Marcus throwing her documents to the floor, calling her work trash. She didn't embellish or complain, just laid out the facts, but each word felt like a knife reopening the wound. When she finished, the line went so quiet she thought Donald had hung up. Then he sighed, a heavy sound, carrying the weight of a decade's mistakes. "Sophia, do you know why I always trusted you with the biggest projects?" Donald said slowly, his voice now sharp, as if about to unveil a long-hidden secret. She shook her head, though he couldn't see. "Because you're not just a project lead. You're the key. The source code for the new product, it's locked with your personal digital signature." Sophia froze, the coffee mug slipping from her hand and hitting the carpet with a soft thud. "Digital signature?" she repeated, her mind reeling. "What do you mean?" Donald explained, his voice laced with anger and regret. For years ago, Innovate Tech nearly went bankrupt after a tech leak. Afterward, he designed a special security system for flagship projects. The source code couldn't be activated without the project lead's digital signature. For the upcoming product, Donald chose Sophia, not because of her tenure, but because he believed she alone had the skill and integrity to protect it. "Marcus doesn't know," Donald said, his voice almost a whisper. I never told him. I thought he'd learn to understand the company on his own. But he fired you, and now our partners are threatening to pull out if you're not at the launch. Sophia's heart pounded, as if yanked from darkness into blinding light. She stood, pacing her tiny living room. Part of her wanted to scream in rage, 10 years of devotion, and Marcus erased her without knowing she held the company's biggest secret. But a deeper part felt a fire ignite. Marcus had dug his own grave. The digital signature wasn't just a line of code, it was proof of her worth, something he couldn't strip away. Sophia, I need you to come back, Donald said, his voice now urgent. Not just for the project, but because this company is my dream, and I can't let Marcus destroy it. I was wrong to hand him the reins too soon. Will you come back? Sophia stopped by the window, staring at the city bathed in lights. She remembered Marcus's smug glare, the hushed applause of colleagues as she left the office, and the tears in the elevator. A mix of emotions surged, pain, anger, but above all, a steely resolve. She wasn't a burden. She was the key. And if Marcus thought he could erase her, he'd soon learn how gravely he'd miscalculated. Donald, she said, her voice now calm but sharp as a blade, I'll come back. But not to save Marcus. I'm coming back to save myself, and to make sure he never gets the chance to hurt anyone like this again. Donald was silent for a moment, then exhaled, as if shedding a burden. Thank you, Sophia. I'll arrange everything. Be at the office tomorrow morning. When the call ended, Sophia stood there, her heart still racing. She picked up the broken coffee mug from the floor, a bitter smile crossing her lips. Marcus thought he'd won by pushing her out of Innovate Tech. But he didn't know that, in the shadows of her humiliation, a secret had been revealed, one that would change everything. She wasn't the Sophia from this morning, leaving the office with a broken heart. She was a new Sophia, holding the power to rewrite her own story. Dawn crept through the curtains, bathing Sophia's apartment in a soft orange glow, but her mind remained caught in a storm. Last night, after Donald's call, she didn't sleep. His words echoed like a war drum. She was the key to the project, the only one who could unlock the new product's source code. But that didn't soothe the wound in her heart. The image of Marcus throwing her documents to the floor, his arrogant glare as he branded her a burden, still twisted like a knife. 10 years of dedication, sleepless nights, personal sacrifices to fix system bugs, all erased in a single moment. Yet something shifted in her last night. The numbing pain had given way to a smoldering, sharp-edged fire, waiting for its chance to blaze. Sophia stood before the mirror, adjusting her black blazer, her hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. She wasn't yesterday's Sophia, the one who left the office with trembling shoulders and a shattered heart. She met her own gaze in the mirror and whispered, "They'll see who I am." But before stepping out, she sat at her desk, opened her laptop, and drafted an email to Donald. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, each word a precise, cutting strike. She didn't just agree to return, she set terms. "I want full control of the project," she wrote, "not just to finish it, but to ensure it reflects the vision I created. I demand compensation for the public humiliation, and most importantly, Marcus must be excluded from any decisions related to this project." She paused, took a deep breath, and added one final line, "I'm not coming back to save Marcus, Donald. I'm coming back to save the dream you built and to prove no one can erase my worth." She hit send, her heart pounding. It wasn't just an email, it was her manifesto, a declaration of war against Marcus and the fear within her. As she left the apartment, the sunlight blazed, as if the world knew she was gearing up for battle. Innovate Tech's office felt different this morning. The glass walls gleamed, reflecting light, but inside, the air was heavy, like the calm before a storm. Sophia strode through the main entrance, bypassing the familiar employee side door. She wanted to be seen, not as the defeated Sophia, but as one who'd returned, stronger than ever. Her heels clicked rhythmically on the marble floor, drawing eyes from the reception desk to every corner of the workspace. A few colleagues stood, mouths agape, whispering, "She's back?" Another, from the dev team, grinned brightly, as if hope had been reignited. Donald was waiting in the corner boardroom, reserved for major partners. When Sophia entered, he stood, his eyes no longer those of a powerful CEO but of a father grappling with guilt. "Sophia," he said, his voice hoarse, "I read your email. And I agree. All your terms, control, compensation, and," he paused, as if the next words pained him. "Marcus won't interfere. I was wrong to give him power too soon. I want you to know I'm not just sorry for yesterday, but for letting things go this far." Sophia nodded but didn't rush to respond. She pulled out a chair, sat, and looked him in the eye. "I respect you, Donald. You gave me a chance 10 years ago, and I built this project from nothing. But what Marcus did didn't just insult me, it insulted everyone who's poured their sweat into Innovate Tech. If I come back, I want to ensure this never happens again, not just to me, but to anyone." Donald bowed his head, a rare gesture from him. "You have my word," he said, his voice low but firm. "I've arranged for you to lead the product launch next week. The Berlin partners only want to work with you. They trust you, and so do I." In that moment, a jolt ran through Sophia. This wasn't just a return, it was her chance to reclaim everything Marcus tried to steal. But she knew the battle wasn't over. Marcus was still out there, somewhere in the cold glass corridors, and he wouldn't surrender easily. As she left the boardroom, the hallway fell silent, as if holding its breath. Colleagues stopped typing, looking up at her. Some smiled, some whispered, but all felt the shift in the air. Then she saw him, Marcus, standing at the hall's end, arms crossed, his eyes like a cornered animal's. He said nothing, just stared, his jaw clenched. Sophia didn't flinch. She walked toward him, not fast, not slow, each step a statement. A few feet away, she stopped, locking eyes with him. "Try that again, Marcus," she said, her voice low but razor-sharp, "and you'll see what it's like to lose worse than yesterday." Marcus's lips twitched, as if to retort, but he turned and strode into his office. Sophia smiled, not a victor's grin, but the smile of someone who knew she held the upper hand. Behind her, soft applause broke out. A group of young devs stood there, their eyes shining as if they'd seen a hero. A girl, probably a new hire, stepped forward hesitantly. "Sophia, we knew you'd come back. Thank you for not giving up." Her words were a cool breeze, easing the ache in Sophia's heart. She nodded, her voice gentle. "Thank you. We're going to do something great, I promise." But as she returned to her old desk, unease crept in. Marcus wasn't one to back down. She declared war, and he'd strike back, not openly like yesterday, but in crueler, shadowed ways. Sophia opened her laptop, pulling up the project files. The screen lit up, displaying the product interface she'd designed, every line of code, every detail bearing her mark. She touched the screen, feeling a surge of new energy. This wasn't just a job, it was her legacy, and she'd defend it, no matter the cost. Outside, the city was waking, but in Innovate Tech's office, a new war had begun, and Sophia was ready. Sophia's first day back at Innovate Tech was a canvas of mixed emotions, trust tangled with doubt, hope blended with unease. After that morning's icy standoff with Marcus, a new energy surged through her veins. Colleagues began approaching her, not just about the project but to share quiet stories of being dismissed by Marcus, their ideas swept aside without a second thought. Sophia listened, nodded, and vowed to deliver the project on time. But as dusk fell, painting the glass walls in fiery orange, a nagging unease crept in. Marcus had retreated too easily after their hallway clash. Someone like him didn't lose without striking back. She stayed late in her temporary office, a small room on the top floor with a view of the city skyline. Her laptop glowed, showing the project's progress 85% complete, just days from the Berlin partners' launch. She scrutinized every detail, user interface, security protocols, ensuring no errors. But an email from the lead partner, Elena Fischer, stopped her cold. The subject was blunt: request for clarification. The contents hit like a punch to the chest. A video from a supposed meeting last week showed Sophia disparaging the Berlin team, calling them uncreative and profit-chasing. Sophia froze, her breath catching. She'd never held that meeting. The voice sounded like hers, the blurry figure looked like her, but those words, they weren't hers. She played the video, hands trembling. The image flickered, but the way the on-screen Sophia tilted her head, the cadence of her speech, it was a chillingly precise fake. Her heart pounded, a suffocating dread rising. This wasn't a glitch. It was a deliberate attack. And only one person had the motive, Marcus. Sophia slammed her laptop shut, leaning back in her chair, fighting a tide of rage and panic. If this video spread, it wouldn't just ruin her reputation, the entire project, the dream she'd poured her sweat into, would collapse. The Berlin partners were sticklers for respect. A misstep like this could make them walk away. She stood, pacing the small room, trying to piece her thoughts together. Marcus didn't just want her out of Innovate Tech, he wanted to destroy her, piece by piece. She recalled his eyes that morning, not angry but calculating, like a predator biding its time. How had he faked the video? And why strike just before the launch? The questions swirled, but before she could chase answers, her phone buzzed. A text from Avery, her best friend in PR, "Meet me at the corner cafe. Urgent. It's about Marcus." Sophia hurried out, her heart racing. The cafe, a few blocks from Innovate Tech, glowed with warm yellow light, a stark contrast to the storm inside her. Avery was already there, tucked in a quiet corner, her eyes glinting with worry. "Sophia," she whispered as Sophia sat, "I overheard something last night. Marcus was bragging at a bar to some strangers. I was there by chance, but I heard him clear as day. He said he'd found a way to crush that arrogant woman and there'd be a surprise she'd never recover from." Sophia gripped her latte, the heat scorching her hand, but she didn't care. "A video," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He faked a meeting video, Avery. I just got it from the partners. If it gets out," she couldn't finish, her throat tightening. Avery grabbed her hand, her eyes blazing with resolve. "Listen, Sophia, Marcus isn't working alone. I heard him mention a name, some freelance tech guy, a specialist in forging digital content. I don't have details, but I recorded a snippet of him talking at the bar. It's not crystal clear, but it's enough to show he's up to something." A spark flared in Sophia's darkness. Avery, with her messy hair and mischievous grin, was always her rock. But now, she wasn't just offering hope, she was handing Sophia a weapon. "Send me the recording," Sophia said, her voice steadier now. "And Avery, thank you. Truly." Back at her apartment, Sophia played the recording on her phone. Marcus's voice cut through the bar's background noise. "Who does she think she is? I've got a plan, a little video, she'll be begging to come back." The audio was faint, but it confirmed her suspicions. She transferred it to her laptop, saving it in an encrypted folder. Then she called Ryder, the head of internal audits, someone she knew she could trust. "Ryder," she said when he picked up, "I need you to check the company's internal video systems. Something's off, and I think it's tied to Marcus." Ryder, with his calm, steady tone, promised to dig in immediately. But as she hung up, a chill settled over her. Marcus wouldn't stop at the video. Checking her email, she noticed project files had been tampered with, keynotes deleted, timelines altered. All done from a hidden account, but digital footprints never lied. She sent the findings to Ryder, asking him to trace the source. That night, Sophia didn't sleep. She sat at her computer, the screen's blue glow illuminating her tired but resolute face. She thought back to her early days at Innovate Tech, a young engineer full of dreams, working under dim lights to turn code into reality. She'd been afraid then, of failure, of being overlooked. But now, fear had morphed into something else, ironclad determination. Marcus wanted to ruin her, but he didn't realize each attack only made her stronger. She opened the window, letting the night breeze carry the city's pulse inside. Somewhere out there, Marcus was probably smirking, thinking his plan was flawless. But Sophia was smiling too, a smile without a hint of mercy. She was ready for the next battle, and this time, she wouldn't let him catch her off guard. In the days following Marcus's scheme, Innovatech's office felt like a ship adrift in fog, calm on the surface, but roiling with undercurrents of doubt and tension. Sophia worked relentlessly, checking every line of code, every email, ensuring the new product's launch stayed on track. But each time she left the office, colleagues' eyes trailed her, some filled with empathy, others cautious, as if bracing for an explosion. She didn't blame them. Marcus had sown unease, and though she'd sent preliminary evidence to Ryder, she knew the real battle was still brewing. Each night, she stood by her apartment window, gazing at the glittering city, wondering if she had the strength to face what was coming. Yet deep inside, a steady flame burned, not for revenge, but to protect what she'd built. On Wednesday morning, Ryder called her to the audit room, a cramped space overflowing with monitors and papers, where fluorescent lights cast everything in a stark glow. Ryder, calm but sharp-eyed, slid a folder across the desk. "Sophia," he said, his voice low and certain, "we found what you needed. And more." She took the folder, her hands trembling slightly. Inside were digital trace reports, but what stopped her cold was an email, not sent to anyone in the company, but to an anonymous address. The sender, Marcus. The contents, "Make sure it looks real. If she falls, I'll take full control. My father will have no choice." Sophia looked up, her breath catching. This wasn't just a plot against her. Marcus was scheming to overthrow Donald, using the project's failure as leverage to cement his power. A chill ran down her spine, not from fear, but from realizing his ruthlessness far exceeded what she'd imagined. Ryder continued, a rare edge of anger in his voice. "This email came from Marcus's private server, but he was careless, no encryption. We also found traces of him accessing the internal video storage system right when project files were altered." She flipped through the pages, her heart racing. Everything was there: access logs, unauthorized changes to the project timeline, even a piece of code inserted to delay security checks. Marcus didn't just want to discredit her, he wanted the project to crash entirely, plunging Innovatech into crisis so he could emerge as its savior. Sophia gripped the folder, feeling like she held a live grenade. But instead of fear, a razor-sharp clarity settled in. This was her chance to end it. Donald called an emergency meeting that afternoon, not in the usual glass-walled boardroom, but in a large conference hall where the entire executive board and senior management gathered. Sophia entered, her gaze sweeping the room. Directors sat upright, some whispering, others eyeing her with curiosity tinged with skepticism. Marcus sat in the far corner, tapping his fingers on the table, a smirk playing on his lips as if he still held all the cards. But when she looked at him, she didn't see a victor, she saw a man teetering on a cliff, unaware of the drop. Donald stood, his voice resonating with gravitas. "We're here to address a grave issue," he said, his eyes flicking to Marcus before settling on Sophia. "Sophia, do you have something to share?" She took a deep breath, stepped to the podium, the folder in her hand heavy as a verdict. She didn't look at Marcus, not yet. Instead, she faced the room, the same people who'd witnessed her humiliation days ago. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice steady but sharp as a blade, "I'm not here to defend myself, but to defend Innovatech, the company we've built together. I have proof that the new product launch was deliberately sabotaged, not just to harm me, but to bring us all down." The room fell silent, broken only by a few sharp intakes of breath. She held up the folder, her voice trembling with emotion. "This email, sent by Marcus, reveals a plan to tank the project so he could seize control of the company. He altered files, inserted faulty code, and tried to turn our partners against us." Marcus shot to his feet, his chair crashing behind him. "She's lying," he shouted, his face flushed. "She's bitter about being fired and cooked up this stunt to get back at me." But his voice faltered, lacking its usual swagger. Sophia didn't flinch. She switched on the projector, displaying Marcus's email on the massive screen. Each word landed like a hammer. If she falls, I'll take full control. The room erupted in murmurs, all eyes turning to Marcus. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Sophia faced him for the first time in the meeting. You made a mistake, Marcus, she said, her voice no longer trembling, but ringing like a final judgment. You thought you could erase me, erase us, to feed your ambition. But Innovate Tech doesn't belong to you. It belongs to those who've poured their sweat, blood, and tears into it. She paused, locking eyes with him. And today, you'll pay the price. Donald rose, his face pale but resolute. He stepped toward Marcus, his voice thick, not with anger, but with pain. I gave you too many chances, he said. But you've betrayed not just Sophia, but this family's dream. He turned to the board. Effective immediately, Marcus is terminated for unethical conduct and harm to the company. Then he looked at Sophia, his eyes shining with deep respect. Sophia, in front of everyone, I apologize. You didn't just save the project, you saved Innovate Tech. The room broke into applause, not thunderous, but profound, like a long overdue acknowledgement. Marcus stood frozen, his eyes vacant, a shattered statue. He stumbled out of the hall, not looking back. Sophia remained at the podium, still clutching the folder, feeling as if a boulder had lifted from her chest. She didn't cry, not now. Instead, a strange relief washed over her, as if she'd finally reclaimed herself. As people filed out, Donald approached, taking her hand. You did what I couldn't, he said, his voice trembling. Thank you, Sophia. She smiled, not a victor's grin, but the smile of someone who'd walked through darkness and found light. She knew this battle was over, but her journey at Innovate Tech was just beginning. After the fateful meeting, Innovate Tech felt like it had stepped into a new dawn. Whispers of Marcus's downfall still lingered in hushed office conversations, but the air grew lighter, as if a dark cloud had lifted. Sophia walked the glass corridors, no longer sensing skeptical glances or murmurs trailing her. Instead, she met shy smiles and respectful nods from colleagues who'd once stayed silent as she was cast into the shadows. She didn't hold it against them, she understood that sometimes silence was how people shielded themselves. But now, she saw a chance to change that, not just for herself, but for everyone who'd ever felt overlooked in the company's relentless grind. A week later, Donald invited Sophia to his private office, not the sterile boardroom, but a warm space with wooden bookshelves and sunlight streaming through wide windows. He sat across from her, not as a commanding CEO, but as a man who'd weathered a storm and found peace. Sophia, he began, his voice soft but laden with meaning, you did what I couldn't. You didn't just save the project, you reminded me what Innovate Tech truly is. He slid an envelope across the desk, containing a letter of appointment, Vice President of Innovation, the highest role ever held by someone outside the Donald family. This isn't a reward, he said, his eyes glinting. It's what you've earned, long overdue. Sophia held the letter, her fingers tracing the bold print. She didn't rush to open it. Instead, she looked at Donald, her voice calm but resolute. If I take this role, I want to do more than lead projects. I want to build a place where no one fears speaking the truth, where every idea is heard, whether it comes from an intern or a director. Donald smiled, a rare, genuine smile she'd never seen before. That's exactly why I chose you, he said. Do what you believe is right. In the weeks that followed, Sophia dove into her work with renewed vigor. She didn't just step into the vice president role, she became a force of change. She established an employee support fund, not only to compensate those wronged in the past but to empower them to stand up. She personally invited back 2 talented engineers who'd left under Marcus's pressure, meeting them to hear stories they'd never dared share. She launched ethics training sessions, not dry lectures, but raw, honest discussions where she recounted her own journey, from the moment of public humiliation to the instant she reclaimed her voice. Each time she spoke, the room fell silent, and when she finished, applause erupted, not just recognition, but a deep connection. One afternoon, Sophia stood before the development team, her gaze sweeping over young, eager faces. She held a small whiteboard, writing a single word, respect. This isn't just a word, she said, her voice ringing like a vow. It's the foundation of the new Innovate Tech. We don't just build products, we build trust. When she finished, a shy intern raised a hand and asked, Sophia, how did you get through everything? She smiled, not the polished grin of a leader, but the real smile of someone who'd been broken and rebuilt. I didn't do it alone, she replied. I had people who believed in me, and more importantly, I learned to believe in myself. The new product launch, a month later, wasn't just a success, it sent shockwaves globally. Articles hailed it as Innovate Tech's breakthrough, but Sophia didn't chase the spotlight. She stood backstage, watching her team soak in the applause, her heart lighter than ever. What made her prouder, though, was the anonymous reporting system she'd set up, a channel for employees to share ideas or concerns without fear of retaliation. In its first week, dozens of messages poured in, from process improvements to stories of pressures once kept secret. Sophia read each one, feeling a profound bond with people she'd never met. One evening, as the city glowed with neon, Sophia sat alone in her new office, larger but still simple, with a small cactus on the desk, a gift from Avery. She opened her laptop to check final emails and froze at a message from an unsaved number. Subject, just this once. She frowned, clicking it open. The note was brief but jarring. You won, Sophia. I was wrong. Marcus. She stared at the screen, her breath catching. Marcus, who'd once thrown her into darkness, was out there somewhere, offering a belated admission. She felt no triumph, no anger. Instead, a strange peace settled over her. She deleted the message without replying, she didn't need to. Marcus was no longer part of her story. She stood, stepping onto the office balcony, the cool night breeze tugging at her hair. The city sprawled before her, each light a story untold. She thought back to her early days at Innovate Tech, a young woman full of ambition, afraid but relentless. She'd once believed surviving meant staying quiet, keeping her head down. But the darkness Marcus created taught her otherwise. Strength wasn't in silence, but in standing up, even when her legs shook. She hadn't just survived, she'd been reborn, not as a victim, but as a guide. In the months that followed, Innovate Tech transformed. It wasn't just rising profits or glowing reviews, it was how people looked at each other, how they smiled in elevators, how they dared pitch ideas without fear of dismissal. Sophia became a symbol, not for her title, but for turning pain into a drive for something better. She received a thank you note from an anonymous employee that read, "You made me believe I can be strong too." She kept it in her desk drawer, a reminder of why she fought. As she left the office that night, the moon hung low, gentle as a whisper. Sophia walked on, not looking back. She knew her journey wasn't over, but for the first time in years, she felt she belonged, not because of the job, but because of the legacy she was building, one of courage and truth. Sophia's story conveys a profound lesson about resilience and self-worth in the face of adversity. Despite being humiliated and cast into the shadows, she refused to let pain define her, instead using it as fuel to rise, demand respect, and drive positive change. The core message is this: your value isn't determined by how others treat you, but by how you choose to respond. In life, when confronted with injustice, trust in your abilities, seek the truth, and dare to speak out. Every challenge is an opportunity to reshape not only yourself but also the world around you. Live courageously, never let silence dim your light, and always remember that self-respect is the greatest strength to weather any storm.